Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I was asked, invited by Ijaz Saab to come here and talk on this subject. And I've been thinking what to say here. First of all, I'd like to disappoint those who are looking for Raat ki khabar. So this is going to be all Subah ki khabar. So let me just start with, I think, raise your sights. 5 years is just too small a time for even corporations, not to talk about a country. 5 years doesn't do justice. I think we need to have a 20-year vision if we are to reshape ourselves. Reshaping the economy is only one part of it, but reshaping the future is what counts. And I think the best way to start, I was just thinking what to say here, was to say about the state. You know, there's a difference between the state and the government. I hope you guys know what is a state and what is a government. So, the state is an entity that is seized with, like you can say, developing human capital. That is what a state is supposed to do. It is supposed to provide rule of law in the country. It is seized with the responsibility of security and sovereignty, and of course, with the political structure. That is called a state. So, like you have strategy in a business, we need to first sort out what is it that we want in our state, what is the end goal, what a state should look like. And I think we don't need to be despondent where we are today. It's a journey that is going on, but there is something called we need to bring clarity to ourselves. What should we look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 and 20 years as a state? And there are beautiful examples out there of many, many countries that have done this. Look at Singapore, look at the US, and many more. And some of them are in that state, like a lot of Gulf countries, and you can see now what Saudi Arabia is doing. So we need to raise our sights. It's not a 5-year journey, it's the next 20 years. And then we say to ourselves, what is our economic agenda? So economic agenda doesn't sit outside the state. So you need human capital, you need rule of law. It's a deeper subject. You need a political structure, you need security and sovereignty of the state. And then say, how do we make our economic agenda for the next 20 years? Does it make sense? And that economic agenda is not plucked out of the books. That country has done so well and let's just copy that. It's got to be a homegrown agenda, economic agenda. We keep running to outsiders. We keep running to IMF. It's very degrading. आप ये देखिए, मैं आपको एक statistics देता हूँ and you'll be, I should cheer you up. We are about $350 billion economy. Yes, it's recognized. That $350 billion economy is documented because that's where you get the 9 trillion or 10 trillion worth of taxes. And I wouldn't be wrong if I were to say at least $350 billion worth of economy is sitting outside undocumented. Imagine what the size of your country is. It's north of $700 billion, and people are vying to get to the $1 trillion club. That's recognized because there is a very exclusive club of $1 trillion economies. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is within your reach, even after having a very patchy record of economic performance, you are still almost $700 billion worth of economy. I mean, that's very significant. Now, the question is, what is our roadmap? How do we document the rest of the $350 billion economy? That's part of the economic agenda. That's part of remaking the state. Because imagine that $35 billion, $350 billion, if you were to just document 200 out of the 350. I mean, I give grace, 150 can still remain outside. $200 billion worth of economy, 10% flat tax means $20 billion into the current exchange rate. It's 6 trillion rupees of taxes. Does it hit you? 6 plus 9, what you collect is 15 trillion worth of taxes, and your fiscal deficit almost disappears. Imagine the scale. Imagine the reservoir of wealth that this country is sitting on. It's a question of how do we disrupt the present framework. So the next 20 years is about disrupting the current stalemate and the way we do things. This has to change. And I think the best way to change is when everything is so low, which we went to a very low period, and nothing is late in life. If only we were to get our act right. So I am very sanguine about Pakistan. This is Subha Ka Pakistan I'm talking about. Assalamu alaikum. And therefore, we need to set our priorities right in terms of our economic agenda. You cannot run a state, you cannot invest in your human capital. You need scientists, you need to invest in higher education, you need to invest in R&D, you need to change your curriculum, you need to change your schooling in universities, which is fit for purpose. So in the US, out in the West, or in other developed countries, the academia works very closely with the industry. Why? Because they are trying to solve the issues in the economy. And that you do through innovation. You do research what is good for Pakistan, how is it to be solved, whether that's your transport issue, whether that's your energy issue, whether that's your infrastructure issue. वो बाहर से हम लोग लाते हैं. हमें खुद उस पे research करनी चाहिए. We don't have to copy, we need to invent in our own way to sort out those pressing issues of our people. Whether that's to do with health, whether that's to do with education, whether that's to do with, you can say, making roads or mining. We don't need to, because we as a nation, we have done wonders. If this nation can produce nuclear devices, can produce missiles, it can do. Look at our diaspora abroad, what they do when they go abroad. They get the opportunity. We need to provide opportunity in this country. And for that, you need to break the current mold. I think that's really what's required in the next 20 years. We start now to break the status quo. If you break the status quo and bring the inclusivity of our people, because there's a lot of people who are exclusive from the society of what we have to do. We have to open up our economy. We have to open up the way we do things. We need to get extremism out of our country. We need to make sure that we get a soft image. It's those building blocks that we must encourage. And then you can talk about, you got the environment right. Where is it that we should be investing? What should be our direction? And I think you don't have to go too far to find out. This is an agrarian country. We are blessed with the canal network, the largest in the world. How do we utilize water? आज आप पानी को देखें. What happens to our water? It is untaxed. The water is lost because we are inefficient in water. We are growing crops that need too much water and don't add value. How do we remake this? How do we remake this and get away from the elite capture that would encourage the status quo? And therefore we should bring, in a true sense, what the farming should be like in this country, and encourage those who are shy on the sides. And it's the government's job to bring those people in the fold, the farmers, the poor farmers, if they don't have holdings, is to make cooperatives, to make a size. It's done in Netherlands, as you know, and encourage them. Seed is a big issue in this country. Believe you me, today with the same acreage, with the same water, you get the seed right, the yields will go up 4 times. You don't have an issue importing any of your food stuff. It's just that we haven't got our act right in terms of what happens to the seeds. We got to do our own research. We got to make sure, and I'll tell you a secret, rest of the world where there's good farming, 90% is hybrid seeds and 5% is open pollinated variety. And in this country, 90% is open pollinated variety and only 5% or 10% is hybrid seeds. Can you imagine what we are doing to ourselves? We used to be the 3rd largest cotton producer, and you know where we are? We were almost nowhere to be seen. With 5 to 8, if we do 8, we celebrate these days. And in the neighboring countries who started very close to each other are almost 40 million bales. So it's not कि कोई हमें बाहर से आके करेगा. It's all there. Its question is how do we motivate and have a disruptive framework where we bring the energies of our people back into the system, not outside. And how do we have the rule of law? How do we provide security? How do we develop our human capital? Dr. Amjad बैठे हैं इधर. I'm sure we will hear from him and we will learn from him. He is a role model. Again, बाहर से तो नहीं है किसी ने आके किया. The man had a vision, and look, he has taught us. He is a role model, and each one of us should be thinking that way. What can we give back to the society? So farming is one. आप हैरान होंगे mining. We have not touched mining in this country. There's a reservoir of wealth creation in mining, but we have just not touched, even scratched the surface yet. I can tell you, there is gold, there is copper, there is lithium, you name it, it's all there. Critical metals I call. Critical copper today is the most sought after metal, I'll tell you today, not iron, copper is the most sought after metal. Ask me why, because all the renewable energy is going to be fueled by copper. That is the metal of the future, and we are blessed with it. And we've been sitting on this reservoir for ages. So those are the things that I have said. And livestock, again, we are the 4th largest herd we have in this country, but it's so dispersed, absence of government, absence of people on the ground. That is something that nobody from outside is going to come and give it to us. We used to have great hybrid, the cows that you used to. Everybody has taken in Brazil. People are now importing from Brazil. They took our cows and what they have done with them. So there is no room for despondency. And I'll tell you a little which is not known, like you don't mind, 5 minutes more, the story of Fauji Foundation. I was an outsider when I came. I'm the first civilian after 45, 50 years. Okay, the first person who came, and I had a very different perception about the place, which is also there in the public and doesn't seem to go away. But let me tell you the truth about it. So we are a social hybrid organization formed in the 50s when the British left and left an endowment of $5 million. And they said, isko distribute kar dein aap. And I think the government at that time with the forces decided to put an endowment in. And they thought about my predecessors, a lot of vision in there. Should we distribute this? Or should we go and invest and use the income from that endowment to do welfare? Because they said, isko distribute kar dein aap war veterans mein when they were going. And they decided in their wisdom to invest in something, I think, if I remember, cereals or something, which is still there. And that's how the journey started. And they said any income from those investments that they do is going to finance the welfare, because this is under the Charitable Endowment Act, and no money can go out. Unlike what people think, no money can go out, no money can come in. You have to manage with your own resources. That's the social organization. We now treat 2 million patients a year through 11 hospitals, and we run about 800 schools and universities. We teach about 100,000 students, half of which are civilians, because this is for ex-servicemen, and we've opened the doors for civilians as well. That is what actually is our mission. And how do we fund it? We fund it from the income we get from our investments, which are basically 5 large quoted companies. So that's out in the public. We compete in the private sector. Half of those companies are owned by public on the stock exchange, half is owned by us. Again, a big misnomer. Last year we gave 44 billion worth of dividends. Half of those dividends came to us, half went to the public. So in a way, and where do we invest? We invest in those sectors which are trying to solve Pakistan's pressing needs. So we have in the agriculture sector, which is the fertilizer, we have in the dairy sector, which is trying to make sure that the nutritional needs of people are met. We are into drilling and mining, and because that is to bring energy security to Pakistan. And then all these investments were done when the private sector was not there. So there is a history behind this. And then when the private sector opened, we openly compete. One of our, not mine, our companies has been consistently for the last 13 years bagged the top PX prize for 13 years. Every year we get that top prize. But that has to be on a matrix of governance and the dividends and how we manage. So it's out there. And we pay about 190 billion worth of taxes and duties every year. All those 5 companies and the unlisted companies pay their tax. Same criteria happens as to the others. And the dividends from there is what we fund. For me, why I joined was a great mission for me, having done my 40 years of corporate life, 44 now, was not to do with the commercial side, but to give back to the society. And I've been very privileged and honored to serve this place for the last 4 years. I built a hospital for 160 beds. I've done a nursing school with a girls' hostel for the first time, an artificial limb center based on 3D printers, most modern in the region. So I've had a very fulfilling time as I've served the nation. So I hope that is something that I can leave thoughts with you, is to not to be despondent, but to look forward. We can do it, I think, if we think of our own, of the nation, and contribute to it, our own bit into it. Pakistan Zindabad. Thank you very much for your indulgence.